The night had already crossed into that unsettling hour when silence feels heavier than sound, when even the faintest noise seems unnatural. And Ria sat by the window of the last local train, her head resting against the glass, eyes closed as the cold wind slipped through the cracks and tangled gently in her hair, unaware that this quiet moment was the last piece of normalcy she would ever experience. She had left late from work and barely managed to catch the final train, the ladies' compartment nearly empty, one passenger after another disappearing at earlier stations until she was completely alone. And when the train suddenly jerked to a halt in the middle of nowhere, the loud horn snapping her out of her half-sleep, an uneasy feeling crept into her chest as she looked around at the empty coach, the dim, flickering lights, and the darkness outside that seemed too deep, too endless. Checking her phone, she saw it was past midnight, and the realization that she was alone in a stalled train in the middle of the night made her grip her bag tighter, instinctively glancing at the shadows that stretched unnaturally along the walls. She called her husband Suhas, trying to sound normal, telling him she would be late, but even as she spoke, she felt it, that subtle, chilling awareness that someone was behind her, close enough to feel, yet impossible to see. And though fear held her body still, she slowly opened her phone's front camera, angling it behind her, watching through the screen instead of turning around. And for a moment, there was nothing, until a shadow flickered into view and vanished just as quickly, leaving her breath caught in her throat and her skin damp with cold sweat. Convincing herself it was her imagination, she stood and moved toward the door, but the unease followed her, clinging like something alive, refusing to let go, until finally the train started moving again, bringing with it a fragile sense of relief that shattered the moment she stepped onto the deserted platform at her destination. The station was eerily silent, the kind of silence that feels watched, and as she hurried forward, she heard footsteps behind her, perfectly matching her pace, too close, too deliberate. And when she turned, there was no one there, only the empty platform stretching into darkness. To leave the station, she had to pass through a long underground tunnel, and standing at its entrance, she hesitated, her instincts screaming at her to turn back, but there was no other way. So, gathering her courage, she stepped inside, switching on her phone's flashlight as the beam cut weakly through the thick darkness, her footsteps echoing loudly against the walls, as if something deeper inside was answering them. The further she walked, the heavier the air became, until she heard it, a soft, broken sound, like someone crying, echoing faintly yet clearly, as if carried by the tunnel itself. And her voice trembled as she called out, asking who was there, though every instinct told her she didn't want an answer. Then she saw her, a young girl sitting on the ground, her body shaking with quiet sobs, her face hidden behind tangled hair. And despite the fear clawing at her chest, Ria stepped closer, asking if she needed help. But something felt wrong, deeply wrong. And when the girl slowly lifted her head, she didn't speak, she laughed. A hollow, distorted sound filled with pain and something far more sinister, sending a sharp chill down Ria's spine. Trembling, Ria raised her phone, letting the light fall onto the girl's face, and in that instant, everything inside her froze, her mind unable to process what she was seeing. And then the light flickered, just for a second, and when it steadied again, the girl was gone. Panic surged through her as she spun around, searching desperately, her heartbeat pounding in her ears, when suddenly a scraping sound came from above, slow and deliberate, like nails dragging across concrete. And with dread tightening around her throat, she forced herself to look up. And there she was, clinging upside down to the ceiling, her hair hanging loosely, her eyes wide and unblinking, locked onto Ria with an inhuman stillness, as her voice echoed unnaturally through the tunnel, telling her she wouldn't escape. Terror took over, and Ria ran, her breath ragged, her legs trembling as she pushed herself forward. But behind her, something moved faster, something not bound by the limits of the human body. And just as she dared to glance back, the girl launched herself toward her, and everything went dark. Hours later, far away, Suhas paced anxiously in his room, unable to reach Ria, fear growing with every unanswered call, until he could no longer wait, rushing out into the cold night toward the station, his mind filled with dread, praying he would find her safe. But the moment he arrived, the emptiness of the place told him something was terribly wrong. After searching desperately, he entered the same tunnel, calling her name, his voice echoing back to him, until he found her scarf lying on the ground, a small, chilling clue that pulled him deeper inside. And then he saw her, standing near the wall, her back to him, unmoving, and relief flooded through him as he called out to her, stepping closer. But as he reached her, that relief shattered into horror, because Rhea wasn't normal. She was repeatedly smashing her head against the wall, the sound echoing sickeningly through the tunnel, blood running down her face, yet she didn't react to him, didn't stop, didn't even seem aware of him. When he tried to pull her away, she slowly turned, her eyes completely white, lifeless yet fixed on him, and in a broken, unnatural voice, she spoke, asking why he hadn't come sooner, asking if he wouldn't come closer now. And driven by love and desperation, he embraced her, only to realize too late that what held him was no longer the woman he loved, because her grip tightened beyond human strength, crushing the air from his lungs. And in the next horrifying moment, she attacked, tearing into him with inhuman violence, leaving him helpless as pain consumed him, his vision fading as he saw her, covered in blood, smiling with something that was no longer human. When morning came, the tunnel revealed silence again, her lifeless body lying near the wall, her head brutally injured as if she had destroyed herself, and no sign of him except traces left behind that raised more questions than answers, leading authorities to seal the tunnel, declaring it unsafe. Yet the truth refused to be buried, because even now, locals claim that deep within that darkness, the sound of quiet crying still echoes, followed by the sickening rhythm of something hitting against a wall over and over again. And those who dare to follow those sounds are never seen again, as if the tunnel itself chooses who it keeps.